Brand South Africa says its former CEO, Kingsley Makhubela's claims of maladministration and abuse of power will be investigated. Anyone with credible evidence of wrongdoing has been urged to come forward. Makhubela alleges that a 45 million rand contract for reputational management of South Africa internationally was awarded to a UK-based agency with no official contract. The former CEO also alleges that when he blew the whistle in February 2018, he was then suspended. City Press reported on Sunday that Makhubela compiled a report that details alleged abuses of power, corruption, maladministration and a lack of proper governance. Well, to answer some of these allegations, I'm joined by former Brand SA Chairperson Khanyisile Kweyama. Good evening and thank you so much for your time tonight.
Good evening,
Firstly,
Kathy.
Tell us about why you're the one speaking on this issue and not the current chairperson of Brand SA.
So, Kathy, the accusations that the former CEO has made are against the board that I chaired. And we have been observing how the former CEO has really gone on a media campaign accusing the board that we chaired. So we issued a statement that we said we are setting the record straight so that the facts are known, because we cannot continue letting the facts out there the way they are being distorted now.
Tell me about how then you are managing all of this, because I would imagine that the formal process that needs to be undertaken right now would have to happen under the current management at Brand SA.
Absolutely, and we have said that, you know, we actually are urging that that process should take place, that investigation should take place, so that these dossiers are not just flying all over defaming people without any basis. The facts of the matter are that the CEO was put through a proper process. The former board appointed ENS Africa to conduct an investigation, to run a disciplinary process. The disciplinary process was chaired by an advocate who is a deputy chair of the Johannesburg Bar, all credible people. When some of the allegations came through that Dr. Makhubela is referring to, we put them to a forensic investigation that was run by BDO, which is once again a reputable global forensic company. So there is no unfairness that took place. During his disciplinary process, Dr. Makhubela approached the CCMA to say he had been unfairly suspended. He went to the CCMA claiming an unfair labor practice. The CCMA overturned his claim and said he had not been unfairly suspended. He needs to face the disciplinary process. He went through a fair disciplinary processes with the delays that he most of the time caused by postponing at the last minute, by going to the CCMA in the middle of the process. The chair of the disciplinary process found him guilty on 2 of the 4 charges that had been leveled against him. Those were very serious charges that he was found guilty of.
What charges were they?
The one was bringing Brand SA into disrepute, because when he was on suspension, he went on a campaign similar to this one, where he is going out to speak. This is what is happening to me. Now, Brand SA is the entity that is tasked with protecting the brand of the country, not only of the company. So and actually even now, while the country is on an investment drive, and instead people are being distracted by these allegations against its reputation agency. So the charges he was found guilty of, one is the bringing Brand SA into disrepute. The second one was a conflict of interest, in that he had introduced his brother-in-law to Brand SA, and he was awarded a contract that was around 2 million plus, and he did not declare his conflict. Only his brother-in-law, when he was prompted, declared the conflict. So that, to me, as a board and chairing that board, those were serious enough charges that we could not ignore, that we had to put through a process, and he was found guilty of those 2 charges. And a recommendation of dismissal was made by the chair of that disciplinary hearing. Our term ended in May of 2019, so it was then left to the current board to continue with the process.
I want us to take a listen to what he had to say to my colleague Michelle Craig from the AM report earlier on on in the week, and Dr. Kingsley Makhubela saying that of course, talking about the allegations of corruption and maladministration that he believes are behind the collapse of the state-owned entity. Let's take a listen.
I think people have taken this very personal. They never took this very professional. I'm yet to see the statement that was issued out on the 16th. I don't think, Michelle, it's the entire former trustees. I have a good relationship with a lot of former trustees. There are a few individuals who actually thought they had hijacked the entity to serve their personal interests. That's why they are quite keen to even speak about this document. I prepared this dossier, Michelle, to give to the new board so that they understand what's going on as part of my responsibility. And I gave it to them as a CEO of the organization, doing a detailed assessment of what happened. It is based on board minutes. It is based on records of the board, on available body of information that South Africa has. Some of it they should have acted because they constitute serious maladministration and wrongdoing, and the former board did not do anything. Instead, they pursued me and the lady called Nadine Thomas, who was the CFO, who discovered some of the rot that are in the organization. And when we were about to act, we were all suspended. She's also expelled. Yeah. As a matter of fact, she was just hardly a few months in the organization targeted because she discovered serious maladministration and corruption.
What's your response to that?
So my response is that, as Dr. Makhubela says, the dossier that he has prepared, he never presented it to our board. He presented it to this board once they had taken office around December of 2020. So we could not have ignored it because it was not in our sight. Actually, the first time we saw it was about 2 weeks ago. Dr. Makhubela says that he was pushed aside. Dr. Makhubela was accused of sexual harassment in the first whistleblowing allegations. He was then further accused of the charges that I've told you about. So we could not ignore that. You know, we have a fiduciary duty as a board to investigate any of the allegations that come our way. We put him through a fair hearing so that he has an opportunity to present his own side of the story. During the disciplinary hearing, Dr. Makhubela would make lots of allegations about being sidelined and that there was management that was working against him to make sure that he's put aside. But he never produced any evidence of that. And that is why at this stage we are calling on him to actually come up with the evidence and make the accusations at the proper forums and ensure that they are being investigated by the current board so that it's not, once again, in the press, but it's not being put to the test.
Let's focus on this 45 million rand contract, which he says was awarded to a UK-based company for reputational management. Let's take a listen to what he had to say in that same interview with Michelle Craig.
The dossier is a 52-page document. The problem has to do with some managers within the organization. The previous board that was run by Chichima Ponya, when they came into place, I managed to turn the organization around to get clean audits 2 years in a row. I don't think they would ever get any clean audits anymore because the systems have collapsed. And part of the problem is that if you get people who have an intention to loot the resources of the state, the first line of attack that they launch is on systems and processes. Once that collapse is a collapse of the organization. I mean, giving 45 million upfront to an organization in the United Kingdom, up to now, I left South Afrika demanding the reports, demanding to know what is the contract. No one is giving that to me.
So Kingsley,
and I thought this, I think that I must bring to the fore. I can't keep quiet about this thing.
So what were the terms of this contract?
So this was a reputational management contract that Dr. Makhubela signed off himself. So all the systems that he is talking about in terms of not being in place, these were during his tenure as a CEO. There has been no other CEO after Dr. Makhubela. So he is the one that should have investigated this. He is the one that should have seen them through. You know,
but did you as the board not ask questions about this contract?
Oh,
I mean, 45 million is a lot of money to leave an organization. I would imagine that as board members, you would also have an interest in a kind of understanding where the money is going and what it's going to do.
This is an international reputational management contract that is priced in Forex. So as a board, we actually did not have a procurement a committee. So the CEO was the final sign-off in terms of contracts and in terms of managing any of those. So he cannot put the blame at the head.
Why did you not have a procurement committee?
At the board. We had an audit and risk committee, which also looked at procurement matters.
So did they never raise a red flag about this?
No, they didn't raise the red flag. But at some stage, once he had raised the issue, the contract was investigated, as well as its award and all those things.
But that doesn't make sense. So you're saying that he signed off on it, and then he raised it as an issue, and then it was subsequently investigated.
So what is not making sense to you?
So I'm trying to understand the timeline of the sequence of events.
So yes, the contract was already in place. However, as the audit happens, then it comes to the audit and risk committee, and that is when the red flag is raised. It never came to the board before. It's similar to another contract, a marketing contract that Dr. Makhubela had been making allegations about in the public domain as well. Once again, it's a contract that was signed in 2014, before we took office. The audit that took place after that did not pick it up, including up to the AG. Only in 2016 does it get picked up by our board. So a lot of things did fall into place. Dr. Makhubela says there were systems that were not in place. But this was during his tenure as a CEO. And the person who is responsible for ensuring that management reports to him. And the person who is responsible for ensuring that management is doing the right thing should be the CEO.
So let me understand this correctly. The contract was entered into and signed off by Mr. Makhubela. You as the board, when you saw the terms of this contract or the fact that there was no contract, you didn't raise an issue with it?
It was raised. This is one of the contracts that was put to investigation during the tenure of our board. So the report that I referred to you as the BDO report that was conducted by BDO includes a number of contracts that were undertaken during his tenure, during our tenure as a board, and it made a ruling on all of them.
All right. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of he said, she said here, and I would imagine that it will now be up to the current management at Brand SA to institute these investigations and really get to the bottom of what is happening on this particular story. But there you have it, the version then of the former Brand SA Chairperson, Khanyisile Kweyama.